Public policy. Objectives. Types of public policy. Models and approaches to public policy. Types of public policy. Types or examples. The four main types of public policy include regulatory policy, constituent policy, distributive policy, and redistributive policy. These four policy types differ in terms of what their goals are and who they impact or benefit. Regulatory. Achieving government's objectives through the use of regulations, laws, and other instruments to deliver better economic and social outcomes and thus enhance the life of citizens and business. Common examples of regulation include limits on environmental pollution, laws against child labor or other employment regulations, minimum wages laws, regulations requiring truthful labeling of the ingredients in food and drugs, and food and drug safety regulations establishing minimum standards of testing. Constituent. Constituent policies include policies related to reapportionment, government to government service, defense and security. Distributive policies provide benefits to a specific portion of the public. Regulatory policies seek to protect common source public goods from overexposure. Constituent policies create executive power entities or deal with laws. Constituent policies also deal with fiscal policy in some circumstances. Distributive. It allocates resources, either directly or individuals or groups, with equipped infrastructure that is broadly accessible. What is crucial is that these benefits are assumed to be infinitely divisible. The fact that A obtains resources does not imply that B gets less. Meant for specific segments of society. It includes all public assistance and welfare programs. Some examples of distributive policies are adult education program, food relief, social insurance, employability. Redistributive. It redistributes resources in society from one group to another, that is, according to load. The costs are concentrated and so are the benefits, but different groups bear the costs and enjoy the benefits. Narratives on distributive policies legitimize the allocation of resources to individuals or groups, or toward critical infrastructure, while redistributive policies tell stories of who should receive certain benefits. Models and approaches to public policy. We need process models as well as the others because they address different questions what, when, and how, rather than who and why. We need elite models because the diversity of interests involved in policymaking is not as complete as pluralism implies, nor is the conflict among them as equally balanced. In reflecting on the role of policy, two very different policy approaches can be considered: a regulatory and a developmental approach. A regulatory approach aims at establishing a stable policy framework for actions that are either market-driven or mandatory. Incremental policy output. This model relies on the concepts of incremental decision-making, such as satisficing organization drift, bounded rationality, and limited cognition, among others. Basically can be called modeling through. It represents a conservative tendency. New policies are only slightly different from old policies. Policymakers are too short on time, resources, and brains to make totally new policies. Past policies are accepted as having some legitimacy. Existing policies have sunk costs which discourage innovation. Incrementalism is an easier approach than rationalism, and the policies are more politically expedient because they don't necessitate any radical redistribution of values. This model tries to improve the acceptability of public policy. Public sector strategic planning. and attempt to combine the incremental and rational approaches to public policy making. It is an attempt to reconcile the day-to-day demands with the long-range strategies for the future. It doesn't see the organization as wholly determined by the political environment, neither does it ignore risks. It takes an active stance versus passive toward the future with an outward-looking, aggressive focus sensitive to the political environment. It tries to place the organization in a distinctive position vis-a-vis the political environment. It asks questions such as: first, what are the significant characteristics of the environment that generate demands? Second, what are the significant characteristics of the political system that enable it to endure over time and turn demands into output? Third, how do environmental inputs affect the political system? Fourth, how do characteristics of the political system affect public policy? Fifth, how do environmental characteristics affect public policy? And last, how does public policy through feedback affect the environment and the political system itself? Public policy results from a system of forces and pressures acting on and reacting to one another, usually focuses on the legislature, but the executive is also pressured by interest groups. Agencies may be captured by the groups they are meant to regulate, and administrators become increasingly unable to distinguish between policies that will benefit the general public and policies that will benefit the groups being regulated. Interaction among groups is the central fact of politics. Individuals with common interests and band together to press their demands, formal or informal, on government. Individuals are important in politics only when they act as a part of or on behalf of group interests. The task of the political system is to establish the rules of the game, arrange compromises and balance interests, enact compromises in public policy, and enforce these compromises. Thank you.